stability. The milkman, the paper boy, evening TV. Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. This whole world confusing me. Clouds as mean as you've ever seen. Ain't a bird who knows you're true. Then a little voice inside you whispers, don't sell your dreams so soon. Everywhere you look, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look, and everywhere you look.
All right, class, let's move on to Miss Flemington's favorite topic, 1-2.
Guys, vision is grueling, but we're going to get through it. We're all here, okay?
Let's do it. We're a family, Miss Flemington's fam. All right, let's do this. Our learning intention for today, we're going to become fluent by being able to divide whole numbers and decimals up to 2 decimal places. Miss Flemington,
Right.
take it away.
Right, and so at the end of this lesson, how will you know you're successful? Right, after you can do one of 3 things, or all of 3 things, sorry about that. Use place value to divide whole numbers, use place value to divide decimals, and apply the above skills to real world problems. And when we think of real world problems, we think of word problems that are kind of messy, but they are all things that we can relate to, and this is how, like, the why. Right? So why do we need to know how to divide decimals and whole numbers? And we're going to show you how this will be applicable.
Woo-hoo, let's get started. Notes time. Crazy. I'm gonna put. All right, so our notes of topic 1-2, how to divide. Everyone loves division, whole numbers, and decimals. All right, so let's jump over to the left of our academic vocabulary. We're going to find the word quotient. A quotient is the answer to our division problem. We call it our quotient. Then we have another term called our divisor. Our divisor is the number that you are dividing by. Okay. So that's going to go on the outside of our house when we see long division. And then our dividend. Our dividend is the number that is being divided, right? The number that we're trying to see how many parts go into our dividend. All right, so Ms. Flemington just highlighted to see the corresponding numbers and values that go to our terms. All right, so another example there, we see when it's just written left to right in an expression of 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Our 8 is our dividend. Our 2 is our divisor. And then our 4 is our answer, our quotient. Perfect. So let's jump into the steps to dividing with decimals.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump over to example number 1. We're not going to keep looking further down on that left-hand side of our notes because we want to do a review from what we've already should have learned from last year with long division. So we're going to set up our division problem with our house, right? We're gonna put our divisor on the outside of our house. Our dividend goes on the inside. So we're trying to see how many times our divisor can go into our dividend to get our quotient, our answer. So our divisor here is 18, and we're gonna divide that by 863. We're going to see how many groups of 18 can go into each value of 863. We're going to start all the way to our left. It can't go into 8, so we need to go to our next value, which is 6. Can 18 go into 86? And how many groups of 18 can go into 86? How many times can we fit 18? Again and again till we get close to or exactly 86. So if we add 18 plus 18, we know that that's 36. And then if we add 18 again, because 36 is nowhere near 86, so we can keep going. We can fit more groups of 18 into to get to close to 86. So if we add 18 again to 36, we know that that is 54. 54, we can still keep going because we're nowhere near 86, right? It's not reasonable yet. We don't have to stop. So let's add another 18. So 54 plus 18, we have 72. Now let's just see if we were to add one more 18, if that will get us to 86, but we can't go over 86, right? This should be review from last year. So if we add 72 plus 18, this gets us 90. So we can't add that 18 to 72, so we have to stop at 72. How many 18s did we add to get to 72? If we look at all the 18s that are circled, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So there were 4 groups of 18 to get close to 86. We got 72. So we're going to put that 4, we're going to plop it right above that house, right above the 6, because we know that 4 groups of 18, we multiply that to get 72. So now we're going to put 72 underneath this 86. We're going to line them up vertically, and then we're going to find the difference, right? We're going to take it away and subtract. So once we subtract 86 from 72, we get 14. Now we ask ourselves, can 18 go into 14? It cannot. So then we're going to have to bring that value of 3 straight down to see if 18, how many groups of 18 can go into 143. So what we'll do here is we are going to, you can either keep adding, you could keep doing repeated addition and keep adding 18, or you can multiply, right? So since we know that 18 goes into 72 4 times, if we, let's see, I'm going to take this part out. So
Yes, if you want to, we can say something to see, we can estimate so we know if 4 groups of 18 is 72, what if we, added 1 more group or 2 more groups, right? We know that if we added another group, it got 90, so we know we should probably try 6 or 7, right?
yeah. Okay. Okay, so if we know that 4 groups of 18 got us 72, we know that, and then if we know that 5 groups got us 90, so we're going to want to try to keep going to get us to 143 or close to it. So let's try 6 or 7 groups. We'll go with 7 just because we know that if we probably add another 18 to 90, it's going to keep us in the lower hundreds. So let's try 18 times 7. 18 times 7 is going to get us 126. We know that if we already add another 10 to that 126, that's already at 136. And then if we add another 8 to that, it's going to jump us over the 143. So let's do 7 groups of 18 can fit into 143. We'll line that underneath. So 143 minus 126 is 17. We don't have any more values, so we can stop right there and say, since 18 can't fit into 17, we'll have a remainder, right? This might be a vocabulary term that you just remembered, but we'll have a remainder of 17. So what this is saying is that 18 can fit into 863 47 times with the remainder of 17 left over, because that 17 can't fit anymore in. All right, so now that we just reviewed how to do long division, we're going to now jump back over to the left side of our notes, what's highlighted in yellow, and we're just going to reference this side to help us solve our example number 2 and with our steps to dividing decimals. So just like in our long division, we're going to set up our division problem with our dividend, our divisor, and to find our quotient. And then in step 2, we're going to change our divisor into a whole number by moving the decimal to the right, just like in multiplication of decimals. In step 3, we're going to move the decimal the same amount of times in our dividend as we move in our divisor. And we're going to bring our decimal up to our quotient. This is if we have a decimal in both our divisor. Well, this is if we have a decimal in our divisor, right? So we'll definitely talk about how we're going to do that. We'll bring our decimal up to our quotient just like we would bring our decimal into our product. If our divisor is a whole number, then we won't have to do anything to our decimal, right? And we'll show that again. And then we'll divide after that in step number 4. So let's go into example number 2 so you can see how to do this visually. So we're going to find $4.20 and we're going to divide that by $1.40. Our divisor is going to be on the right and our dividend is going to be on the left. So our dividend goes into our house, so $4.20 goes into our house, and $1.40 goes outside in our divisor spot, just like Miss Flemington is setting up here. So now you want to ask yourself, does my divisor, what's outside of my house, have a decimal in it? And it does, right? $1.40 has a decimal. So we want to get rid of that decimal by moving our decimal over to the right. However many times I move my decimal in my divisor over to the right, I also have to do it to my dividend, what's inside my house. So I moved over twice, so now I'm going to have to move over my decimal and my dividend over twice. Always to the right. We're moving from left to right here. So now we can rewrite, so it's nice and clean, our new problem. So we're going to rewrite 140 divided by, so we'll draw our house, 420. This looks nice and clean. We have no decimals. Now it doesn't look as scary. Miss Flemington added a decimal at the very end just so she knows if we have a remainder, if we have anything like that, we'll just bring it straight up and it's going to help us stay organized in our notes. Okay. So first we're going to ask, how many times can we fit 140 into 420? How many groups can go into 420 from 140? So over to the side, you could do a couple of things. You can either multiply and try to see how many groups of 140 that way, or you could do repeated addition, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So when we add 140 twice, we get 280. That's maybe if we add another one, we'll get closer to 420, so let's try. So if we add 140 3 times, we get exactly 420. All of this checks out. We can add that whole number 3 all the way to the right. When we find the difference, we get a 0. So it's a nice, clean, even number that 140 multiplied by 3 gets us 420. So our quotient is 3. Perfect. That took us 4 minutes. That wasn't bad.
That was pretty good. I like that. So
let's just do the first quadrant, or well, quadrant 2. You want to do that?
Yeah. So we'll do those 2 because the other ones, what I like is that they have the graphic organizers with it, and then we can leave the assessment check for them to do. I like that.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, and I don't know if you could say too. So another.
Right. All right, you guys, let's look in our try-its, example number 2, quadrant 2. We're going to look at example number 1, quadrant 2. All right, so let's look at problem A. We're going to divide 65 divided by 8. All right, so just to clarify what goes in your house first, if we look at the first number, our first number goes into our house first. So that will always go underneath our little house. And then because they showed up last, 8 goes outside. That's how, a little quick reminder that Miss Flemington just told me. Love it. All right, so let's divide. We have no decimals that we have to move. They're nice whole numbers. How many groups of 8 go into 6? We can't fit any groups of 8 into 6, so let's look at 65. How many groups of 8 can go into 65? We could do repeated addition. Or because you've been studying so hard over summer, you might have been practicing your multiplication. So how many 8s get into 65? 8, because we know that 8 times 8 is 64, which doesn't get us 65, but when we find the difference of 65 from 64, we have a remainder of 1 left over. So that 1 will now be our remainder. So our answer is 8 and remainder 1. All right, perfect. Let's go over to B. So what goes into our house first? Well, our first value gets to go into our house first. And then 8 showed up last, so they have to stay on the outside. How many groups of 8 can go into 14? Oh, see what happens when I move too fast? I need to move that decimal up there to where my quotient is going to be because I don't want to forget our decimal. So let's do that first. Perfect. Don't want to forget about that decimal. Makes a huge difference. So now let's keep going with the math. 8 groups of how many get into 14? Well, we can only fit one group of 8 because 8 times 2 already is already 16, and that's too much. So 14 subtracted from 8 is 6. 8 can't fit into 6, but we still have a value and 14 and 4/10, so we could bring that 4 down. 8 goes into 64. Well, we just did this from A. 8 goes into 64 evenly 8 times. So we'll put that 8 over that 4. We'll find the difference. We're left with nothing, which is nice and clean. So our answer is 1.8. Yay.
I love it.